sketchbook. Here's my sketchbook. I can show it to you if you wanna have a look. Sketchbook. Here's my sketchbook. And now I will stop his song. Hey, it's me, Mark, and welcome to another episode of the Sketchbook Shows from Talking Joe. Today we've got a very special guest, Shane Simek, who will be sharing some of his G.I. Joe art very shortly. But before we do so, let's meet the people who will be joining us on this discussion. I really want to talk Joe with you. It's a real American Tim.
Hello, Mark.
There he is.
And hello, viewers, and also viewers who are just listening for some reason. Hello, listeners.
Excellent.
But we're going to look at art, so look and listen. Look and fun.
And listen. Yes, indeed. And let's just keep on going with the roll call. Well, next up, we have got Jon Thurmond is coming on the show today with Best Be Behaved.
Oh, it's over.
The man, the legend, the man who wants an extended mega mix of his own jingle, Jon Thurmond. He just can't keep away.
I love it.
Be back
I
on the show,
absolutely
Jon.
love it. As long as I've been podcasting, nobody's ever written me a song, so thank you.
Indeed. I've been tempted to.
When you do 10, you get a longer jingle.
Oh, fair enough. Duly noted.
Come back 7 more times.
Duly noted.
Excellent. So, Jon, today we were going to be joined by Shane, who is coming with your recommendation and seal of approval. So let's meet the man himself. It's Shane.
Shane Simek, who got the Joes in your sketchbook? How many? That's super.
There we go.
It's worth it being here just to have a theme song. Thank you.
That was our show, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed the Talking Joe jingle special.
Hi, guys.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mark, you can play the outro jingle now. Bye, everyone.
So, as well, just a reminder, we're streaming live at the moment. So if you want to join in and send us your comments, you can do so. And it will appear on our screen, something like that. So yeah, please, if you want to interact, let us know what you think of things as we're showing them. Please feel free to join in. So Shane, it's all about you and your art collection today. To give us a little bit of a background, of an intro, how did you get into collecting G.I. Joe art?
I've always been a comic book fan. I started reading the Joe comics around issue, I want to say 10. So I was always into that. I started working at a comic book store a couple years after high school and started going to conventions. And then my friends and I realized, wait a minute, these guys will draw for you. So then in 92, my friends and I started collecting sketches in general. And I started working some Joe stuff in there. And then I started a whole Joe collection from there.
I don't want to assume that no one had ever thought to have an artist draw for them at a convention, but 92 sounds really early for this phenomenon. Shane, did you invent this?
No, I did not. No. I will say there was a dealer in the area named Wayne Birch, and he owned a store in Worcester, Ohio, and his focus was Legion of Superheroes, and he kind of showed my buddies and I this collection he had, where when he would go to the shows, they would draw for him. So then in 92, I went to a Motor City Con, and artist Paul Ryan, who is no longer with us, Paul Ryan was there, and he was a big Iron Man artist at the time, and my best friend Eric was an Iron Man fan. So I had Paul draw an Iron Man that I was going to give to Eric for his birthday. And fortunately, I told Paul that, and he signed it to Eric, because otherwise I would have kept that for myself, because it was great. And that got the ball rolling. From there, we realized also we liked a lot of, like, everyone likes Batman, Wolverine, whoever. We liked lesser known characters, Nightcrawler or Hawkeye. And they weren't on every poster and cover in the 90s. And we're like, why can't we get those guys? And then we realized we can. When we go to the conventions, these guys will draw us whatever dumb character we want, as long as we're paying them money. It still holds true.
That answers a question of mine. Does any of this predate when artists were charging? Because I feel like when I started doing this, artists would actually do simple sketches, like 5-minute sketches, not 30 seconds, for free. And it was only with eBay, or a couple years after eBay, that artists started really actually charging sort of everyone. Were any of these early ones free, or were they just less?
They were cheap. I don't know. We probably have a handful of free sketches, but they were, back then we were paying $20, $25, as opposed to now that's the tax on what you would be paying for something. Steve Epting, who's known for his run on Captain America and the Death of Captain America. When we used to see him, he used to charge $10 for a sketch, and he was never a fan of his own work. So most of the time we had to fight to give him money. He's like, I don't even want to charge you for this. And it was great stuff. But yeah, there's sketches where he was charging 10. He didn't want to take anything, and I made him take 5 as a compromise. Yeah, now the average is probably at 100 going up. I don't even know what the average is, but yeah, it's hard to find anything under 100 that's decent.
Is this always in a sketchbook, or is this sometimes loose paper?
It was very much sketchbook. My friends and I, we all collected sketches, and we all had sketchbooks, and we had themes. But over time, all the wear and tear, and then like the pencil sketches, they start rubbing and they start losing some of their crispness. So I had a couple sketchbooks. I've cut them all apart and put them in portfolios. My G.I. Joe sketchbook, which I have here, is my last remaining sketchbook that has not been cut apart yet. But that'll probably happen. Just honestly, at this point, I think it preserves better. But like I said, when we started, that guy Wayne, he had a sketchbook. It was new to us, and we were all coming up with themes like our favorite characters. My first one was X-Men. My buddy Eric was Iron Man. We all went from there. So it made sense to us at the time. But over time, yeah, we're getting away from that.
Mark, you are muted.
When we were talking just earlier, you were saying that when you got into to the conventions, you sort of had a group of you that all got into it, and you've been pretty much steady since you first started without any real dropping out. So you've got a whole slew of years in between when you started and where we are today of collecting, essentially.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Pardon me. 2017, we celebrated as a group our 25th anniversary of going to conventions and collecting sketches, which was that first Iron Man sketch I got for Eric.
How nerdy.
Yeah.
Was that a party? Did you go to a convention and just acknowledge? I mean, I have a friend from middle school, and at like our 15th year, I thought, oh, we've been friends for 15 years. How did you cap that? How did you acknowledge that?
We did our best to do everything we could and to kick it up a notch. We have a group of, I want to say there's about 10 of us, but it varies on people's involvement. But normally when we go to a show, there's, I'd say 2 to 4 of us, maybe 5. But in 2017, Heroes Con, which I know John talks about and John's a big fan of, Heroes Con is always if we can go to a show, that's the show we want to go to. So we settled on Heroes as our anniversary con. Usually as a group now, we have T-shirts every year. So we had Silver Age was our theme that year, since it was the 25th is the silver anniversary. Actually, the picture you used in my intro, that's my silver anniversary Cranboy shirt that I'm wearing there. We rented a big giant passenger van that we all traveled to Heroes together in. Had magnetic signs with our logo put on the side. Yeah, we did it up the best we could. Got everybody there, and usually we just talk online. I mean, a couple times a week, we've got a group thread where, say, someone opens their commission list, or there's news about a convention, or just silly news or a silly meme or something. They like to make fun of me for collecting G.I. Joe because I'm the only Joe collector. But it all goes around. We got a Turtles guy. We got a Transformers guy. We've got, I mean, there's common ground and everybody knows their stuff. But yeah, I'm the default G.I. Joe guy. So yeah, if there's something silly or dumb to make fun about G.I. Joe, I'm the target. That's how it works.
Has your collecting of this kind of art excluded other kinds of collecting? Jon talked about in a previous episode how he is only collecting convention sketches and commissions, not toys, or if I'm Jon remembering correctly, not comics. Shane, are you narrowly focused?
Not as much as I should be. Art is definitely the priority. I still buy some comics, not a lot. I got rid of the bulk of my comic book collection a couple years ago. And while I still buy weekly books, I mean, I ran a comic book store for years. So it's Wednesday, it's new comic book day. I like to go to the comic book store. That's how I'm wired. I buy a lot of trade paperbacks and hardcovers. My collection in that regard has grown a lot. Toys, I don't hardly get anything. I did get into the 25th anniversary Joe line. And I've slowly, the release of Flint and Lady J in the classified line has started to open that door up, unfortunately. So I've got a couple of those now. But yeah, it's primarily art, but it should be only art, but it doesn't really work that way.
Are you staying current with G.I. Joe?
With the comic books? I'm hit or miss. Like, I don't buy a lot of monthlies, so I pick up a lot of the trade, so I'm not always up to date. I try to follow and keep up with what's going on. All the when they have the different series and stuff going on, that throws me a little bit. Snake Hunt, I read all of Snake Hunt. Since then, I liked the what was it? Not Secret Origins, but the Untold Tales. Yeah, the Untold Tales. Yeah, that was pretty good. I find I like the shorter, more concise stories a little bit more than the ongoing, lengthy stuff, even though that's what I got into. But yeah, I mean, I keep up, but I'm not there. I'm not the first one in line every week to buy my G.I. Joe comic. But yeah, I still read them. I still check them out. There's cool art. I'm always in for that.
Is the shop where you worked still around?
No, that closed. I left there in 2000, and the shop closed in 2010. Just the business, it's hard to keep a shop afloat. They were having problems for a couple years and did everything that they could. There were a couple shops in my area, and it was all friendly competition. And one of those guys who was around all that time, he's still around. And that store is actually minutes from my house. So I'm there all the time. I know all the guys there. The one guy there worked at our shop after I left, but he worked there for a while. They bought all the fixtures and everything from my store. Well, the store that I worked at. So it's very familiar going in there. It's all the nuts and bolts of it. It's all stuff that I helped, set up back in the day.
Is there, to lead us back to the art, because I'll talk about comic shops for minutes and minutes. Is there an artist from whom you have the most sketches and commissions because they're either a favorite or they come around the most often?
Yes, absolutely. Are we talking G.I. Joe specific or just whatever?
Yeah.
G.I. Joe specific, it's probably the same answer. which is Daryl Banks,
Hmm.
which a lot of people think he wasn't a Joe artist, but he did some Devil's Due work when they had that I think it was
Reloaded?
Reloaded. Yeah. And that series didn't do real well, but Daryl worked on that. And the best part about collecting Joe art is so many artists are fans of the property. Daryl's a big one. It's not in what we're looking at today, but when I got a Cobra Commander sketch from Daryl back in the day, he had to throw in a Weather Dominator joke in the sketch because he's a fan and he knows the stuff. But Daryl's local to us. Daryl has been around as an artist as long as we've been doing this. He wasn't at DC yet. His big claim to fame was Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern. That's what most people know him from. He hadn't made that yet, so we knew him before everybody else did. We see him all the time. We talk to him even outside of conventions. We'll chat online and reach out and whatever. So Daryl's definitely a favorite.
How many Daryl Banks Joe pieces do you have?
Several.
More than 4?
Yes.
Less than 10. I'm just trying to get a handle. I'm just trying to get a handle
maybe.
on this.
I'm going to tell you. I can look it up.
Is this a spreadsheet?
No, it's Comic Art Fans.
Oh, of course.
In my sketchbook, I have 5. I have 5 from Daryl in my sketchbook.
And before we get into the sketches proper, do you want to just show us your reference folder that you had earlier?
John, have you discussed our mutual love of reference on the show?
Well, I explained a little bit that, I first connected with Shane, gosh, it was 10 years ago, or like 2010, I think, when I first started getting into sketchbooks. Shane, I don't remember the group or the page. It was one of the Joe boards, and Shane was really active, and I started asking him questions because I could see he would post his art, and we started talking about reference, and that's how we first connected, was him sending me ideas and samples of, hey, here's what I use for my reference. And so then I started going with that, and that's how, and we first, met over that, and then got to connect at Heroes, I guess, the next year or so. So, yeah.
So there's a sample of what I put together as reference with G.I. Joe. I tried to keep a couple things in mind. I tried to go with package art and a cartoon shot, because if they're a fan of Joe, they might know one and not the other. And then just the typical, try to show some good shots of the character, their gear. If you only have headshots, then it's hard to get a full body drawing because they don't know what their belt looks like or what gear they have or whatever. And with some characters, you can't find that. It's just not that easy to find a head to toe shot of a later created jet pilot, because you only see them in the cockpit or, close-ups of their face. Even Ace, the original fighter pilot from G.I. Joe. There's not a lot of good head to toe shots of Ace out there. It's, waist up at best. But being a Joe fan and a collector of art, I have compiled over time this binder of reference, which I've redone a lot of it, and the pictures in here are not all updated. See if I can find someplace good here. But just, it's all alphabetical. I got Joe's in the front and Cobra's in the back. And
I think you just wrote a lyric for an upcoming jingle.
that I could help contribute.
Mark, take a note.
I have reference
Joe's
to
in the
characters.
front.
Cobra's in the
I have
back.
reference to characters I have no immediate plans on getting a sketch of, but 1, you never know, and 2, if I've got a couple of good shots, I'm going to throw a reference together, because why let that go to waste? Plus, maybe I'm at a show and John comes up to me and he's like, oh my gosh, so-and-so's at the show. I would love to get a sketch of the spider pilot, but I can't. I'm never going to find reference here. Hold on, let me check the book.
Is this an embedded joke? Are you trying not to say Ghost Rider?
I am not, but that's a good example.
What's his name? Yeah. And do you have shots of the toys in there as well, mixed in with the art?
No, I don't use like the figures or the actual vehicles, but I try to use the package art. Just it's so symbolic, and I think that stands out even more so. Like the vehicles, I don't have like 360 shots. I just use that classic shot. For the most part, I'm not expecting a full-blown tank. If I get cross country, I don't expect them to draw the entire havoc in the sketch. If I'm setting something up as a commission and I'm doing something like that, then yeah, I'd come up with some stuff for that. But I don't have that. I recently got a clutch, and I was excited because the front end of the vamp shows up in the commission, which I didn't request, but it's clutch, so they kind of go together. But
nice.
I will also say some of the later characters, it's harder and harder to find pictures of them. They didn't show up in the cartoons. They kind of, all the art of them is kind of taken from the same shot. It's the same angle. It's the same pose. It gets a lot less creative. There's a lot less of it. That makes it trickier.
Okay. Should we get started with some art? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Flipping through to the first one. Here we go. You had a figure announced as a G.I. Joe Classified just yesterday.
True. So obviously Barbecue from G.I. Joe. This is by Josh Metters, who had done some of the Devil's Due run. I met Josh at a convention that was it was in Ohio. It was their first convention they were putting on, and I don't know if it wasn't promoted well, but they had an abundance of artists and dealers and not a lot of fans showing up. So the artist area was starving artists. They were like watching the people walking around, just waiting for an opportunity to hit them up and talk. But I knew Josh had done some G.I. Joe art, and I was waiting for him to get there. And I took him my sketchbook, and I gave him my reference book and said, I'm guessing you're a Joe fan, and he was a huge Joe fan. Said, you can draw anyone you want. So he wanted to draw someone he wouldn't normally draw, and he picked Barbecue. And then it being very much a slow show for the artists, I went to check back, and he told him, I don't need my book. I'm just checking to see how you're doing. He said, oh, if you don't need it, just leave it here. I'll just keep adding detail to it because I don't have anything else to do. So definitely worked out to my advantage. Josh was very affordable. He was I want to say this was in the $25 or so range, and this was not back in the early days. But Josh also had a lot of pages available for sale, and I bought several pages from him too, and I think those were like $20 a piece too, from his run on Devil's Due.
Were some of his?
This is 2008.
Okay, yeah, it was.
Were some of his pages pencil only?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because there's an era in Devil's Due when they're scanning pencils and not inking the books. There's a nice touch here where it's all in red pencil, and he's the fire guy.
Yeah, that definitely worked out. It's nice when artists can play around and do something cute and creative like that.
Will you often leave it up to the artist to choose the character? Or is it sometimes yes, sometimes no?
It varies. We kind of joke that we try to find a character that the character fits their style. You've got your basic characters. Anyone can draw the basic guys. Anyone can draw Snake Eyes. But you've got a guy that's all armored up. You don't want to get a guy that's really good at facial expressions, and then he's got this big helmet on, and then what's the point of going to that artist, you're kind of losing that. So we try to find someone, you know, someone seems like they like to draw tech and gear and that kind of thing. You know, maybe I'll have them draw a bat or something like that. Just somebody armored up or something, or with a lot of gear. But or maybe it's just, holy crap, I really want this guy to draw this character. I think that'd be an awesome sketch, and that's what I want. I mean, it varies, but yeah, we try to match it. And then there's been times when I first got the book, I would go to shows and I would not even have an intention of getting a sketch from an artist. But going to shows so long, we've gotten to know a lot of them. So you stop and start talking, and it'll come up, and they're like, "Oh, you have a G.I. Joe book? Has anybody drawn Gun Ho? Can I draw Gun Ho for you in your book?" Yes, yeah. I'm not going to say no to that. Yeah, let's make that happen. Actually, yeah. There's an artist in here we're going to get to today where at one point he gave me a list of characters that he would be interested in drawing. So I kind of like kept that off to the side so I could keep, next time I saw him, I could get one of those from him.
Nice. Cool. Should we skip on to the next one?
Yeah, we can do that.
Ooh.
Here we go. Nice.
So, yeah, I don't have a close personal story about Mr. Trimpy, but I had the opportunity to meet him at a convention, and I just wanted straight up Cobra bad guy. Just give me a classic Cobra Trooper. Just do your thing. And there's nothing about like that rifle that is even remotely accurate. That is a straight up comic book rifle, and I love it. It's just so perfect to those early days of G.I. Joe. I mean, that image could be torn out of any panel from the first 2 years of G.I. Joe or Special Missions. And I love everything about it. It just, and I mean, I have chatted with Mr. Trimpy a couple times. He signed some books for me, and he's a super nice guy. But that's the only art. Well, I have a little Baroness head sketch in one of my hardcovers, but that's my only convention sketch from him, and my only, and it's in the sketchbook.
We looked at a Trimpy sketch in our last episode, and it was also a straight-on view, which feels a little less common for convention sketches, and therefore more novel. You know, I feel like a lot of people learning to draw or comics artists are avoiding straight-on shots because when we're all in like 4th grade and we can't draw, we're like drawing people straight on. It's like, oh, that's flat and boring. But, you know, if a bad guy is jogging at you with a rifle, it becomes something else.
Oh yeah, I mean, he knows what he's doing. He totally makes everything about this work. All the folds, the highlights in his harness, even just the look on his face. I mean, for a convention sketch, it's not like this is something was ever going to see print. But for a convention sketch, that's awesome. I love that detail. Yeah, I was very thrilled that I was able to pick this up.
Excellent. And is this in your the sketchbook that you showed earlier with the Arashikage tattoo? Excellent. Yeah. Any collection, you know, if you've got a Trimpy in there, then you're off to a good start, I think. Cool. And as a character choice as well, it's such a classic outfit and design, and probably, you know, a little bit overlooked because it's, you know, in there first and people then moving on into the whizzier outfits. But yeah, as a design classic, it's hard to beat.
Also, because it's a multitude, it's not an individual. I feel like a lot of people going to a convention wouldn't necessarily say, like, "Oh, can you draw a Techno Viper for me?"
Yeah, I've got the cogs in my brain going now about, because I don't think I've got a full figure Cobra Trooper. I'm thinking, I probably need to have one in my collection somewhere.
In the Cobra hierarchy, a Cobra Trooper that's the original, and they're not fancy. You know, a Cobra Viper, like you said, a Techno Viper, a Tele Viper, those guys, they got more gear, they look a little fancier. It came later on, but the Cobra Troopers, they're pretty basic. But again, Trimpy, he made that design his own early on, and yeah, I I don't remember if he took my reference, because sometimes if they know the character, they won't. But I feel like whatever I gave him was probably ignored because he didn't need it. He knew that.
Yes. I was talking about a commission I got from John Cooper on when we were talking to the Action Force guys a week ago, and it was funny. I was telling him about the Cobra Trooper, and he was going, and he hadn't drawn them since what mid 80s. So you know, fair a while since he'd last drawn a Cobra Trooper, and he was like, went to me, those are those blue guys, right? And I was like, tell you what, I'll send you some reference.
Yeah, reference. Mark, I just I just got a Cobra Trooper from Kev Hopgood recently.
Oh wow!
Who did some Action Force? Yeah, that was a fun one too.
Yeah, he drew some great Cobra Troopers in his run. Probably one of the best takes in print, I'd say.
Since I stifled my reaction when the slide changed, I'll re-perform it now. Ooh.
So this was my first sketch from Pat Quinn, who has also done some G.I. Joe art. It was a mini series. I want to say Declassified.
Yeah.
My buddy Christopher Giles, who used to be a lot more active in the online Joe community and the art community. I met Christopher at Heroes Con, and he would always point out Joe artists that I might have overlooked there, and this is one that Christopher pointed out to me. And Pat Quinn, I have to say, is one of the nicest guys there are to chat with and to deal with when getting any kind of art, be it a convention sketch or commission. Super friendly. I will say my friends and I seem to gravitate towards nice people. I don't know why, but most of our stories will involve, this guy is one of the nicest guys you're going to meet. It's very true of Pat Quinn. This character choice, one, Pat was very affordable, so it made it easier to get 2 characters. 2, I have a buddy who is no longer around, but he knew G.I. Joe. It wasn't his thing, but he always told me that in his world, the last 2 heroes to walk off the battlefield every time were Dusty and Lowlight. So in the back of my mind, after we lost to Adam, I knew that at some point I wanted to get a sketch of those 2 characters together. So this was my opportunity to do that. And I mean, you're just asking him to draw 2 characters. He could have just had them standing there holding their guns. Could have had them, again, straight on shot. We like to call the Marvel Handbook shot, where it's just the head to toe shot of them standing there in a generic pose. But it looks like, again, like this is pulled out of like somebody photoshopped the background out, and it's pulled out of a full page spread out of a comic. The firefight, the detail. I've gotten other pieces from Pat. Actually, I almost sent in, he did a tunnel rat for me. And he did it ahead of a show. He was taking pre-orders before a show, and I asked him to do tunnel rat. And at the last minute, I reached back out to him and said, hey, could you do me a favor? Because he said he didn't need reference. I said, don't give him the M60 machine gun, because I hate when tunnel rat has the M60. Because he crawled around in tunnels where you're not going to fit an M60, and it would have been deafening. Drives me nuts that they do that. So he said, oh, I was just looking up reference for the M60 for your piece. Can I give him a shotgun? Is that cool? Like, yeah, I don't care. As long as it's smaller than an M60 belt-fed machine gun, yeah, that'd be great.
Mark,
so he knows.
I'm just thinking of the toy, the Tunnel Rat's gun must have been one of the biggest out of the entire set of figures. I'd never clocked before the impracticalities of that.
The M60, which is what originally, rock and roll came with as the machine gunner, but then they gave it to the tunnel rat, and then that's everybody defaults to that, which I understand, but it doesn't make any sense to me. Just being, I don't know, in my brain it doesn't click.
There's a issue 8 of the Nom. The cover is Michael Golden, and it is a tunnel rat. and he's got the flashlight and a pistol.
Mhm.
And my brother and I read that around the same time, and my brother made the same remark. Like, this guy wouldn't have such a big gun underground in a tunnel. So we sort of translated that other logic onto G.I. Joe. I wanted to just call out something in the art here. Mark, could you even go full screen, the view that you have right now? The top of the the magnified view that you have right now. Can you go full screen on that?
Okay, right. Yep.
The top of the machine gun that Dusty's holding, there aren't lines. It's just the highlight, which becomes the white of the page, and then the black of the gun, which is at the same time the shadow. And something similar is happening with Lowlight's quilted hat, and a little bit down below with his knee pads and his boots. And that's a really lovely technique. It's happening in Lowlight's rifle too, where there aren't outlines. It's just sort of carved out of the darkness. It's really pretty.
Yeah, there's highlights. Like, he's just waiting for the colorist to come in and have a field day with the space he gave them to play with. I will say Pat is, and I'm not going to pretend that I know the extent, but Pat is an art instructor. So he definitely knows his lighting and that kind of thing.
And when you're getting your sketches,
I'm sorry, what was that?
I was just gonna say, when you're getting your sketches, do you typically leave the book with them and walk away, or do you sometimes sort of sit and have a look as the piece progresses? Because it would be interesting on this one to see to what extent the foundations were laid out in the pencils and then rubbed away to leave these really clever contrasting black and whites.
I did not see him working on this, and that's something that I feel like back in the day when collecting art wasn't as big, it was easier to kind of hang around and chit chat a little bit. But now when they're taking like a full list, they've got like 12 sketches to do that day, and things just, it's a lot more hectic, and it doesn't really work out that way. With my friends and I, we've got a technique where also, say in this example, Pat Quinn's working on my sketch. I want to check on it. I want to see how it's doing. John, I'm going to use you in this scenario. So I'm talking to John at the convention. I'm like, yeah, Pat Quinn's working on my sketch. I don't know if he's done with it yet, but I don't want to go over there because I don't want to spook him and make him say, oh yeah, here, you can have it. I don't need to draw anymore. If he's still working on it, I don't want to stop him. So I'll have John go drive by and check on the progress. Because even if it's an artist that doesn't know you, he's less likely to associate John's face with my commission than my face with my commission. So we'll do something like that. Hey, can you go check on so-and-so and see if he's done with mine, or see what he's working on? And he'd be like, oh, he's working on some Power Ranger. I'm like, oh, that's way after mine. Mine's got to be done. Thanks. I'm going to go get it.
Nice. Okay. Oh, here we go. Love this.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say what everybody's thinking. I wish Michael Golden was more affordable and I could get more Michael Golden. This was at this convention, this was my sole purpose. And I'd seen Michael Golden at a few shows. He comes around on a semi-regular basis. But yeah, it's not, I'm not getting a sketch from him every show. So this is my only Michael Golden art. This was my goal at this convention, was to get this piece. I wanted to get a cool character. I didn't want to get, G.I. Joe green shirt. I wanted somebody of note. I didn't have a Firefly yet. I did check on the progress of this on my own at that show, but Michael Golden was sitting on a corner, so I could kind of walk by behind him and look over his shoulder and see what he was working on. So I kind of got to, I think somewhere I've got some snapshots that I kind of took over his shoulder, showing some of the progress. But when I picked it up, he was very excited because he told me that when he was working on this, he couldn't figure out how he was going to draw on the camouflage. He didn't know how he was going to put those camo patterns in there. And then it dawned on him that even though this was an ink piece, he could use pencil and pencil in the camo. And so he just thought that was like the greatest breakthrough and was super excited that he came up with that solution to the problem.
Something that's so striking about Golden's work in the sort of second half of his career, like we think of the Nam G.I. Joe Yearbook 2 and the Conan covers, maybe like the Jurassic Park covers, and we think of them as, quote, animated and cartoony and exaggerated, right. That things are round and bulbous, like Destro's face in Yearbook 2. It's round, it's round, it's round. Golden, somewhere in the late 90s, started in his work, like certain elements of his drawings would get slightly flat. And it's happening in this drawing where the arm that's foreshortened with the cobra symbol on it, even though that is clearly a human organic arm and clearly like the muscles are like rounded and tapered, there's also something flat and geometric and I mean like rectangular or like trapezoidal about it. And if you Mark, if you scroll down to Firefly's right thigh, the one on the left, same thing. Like this is definitely a rounded human form and those two straps are going around a form. And yet something about those like 4 lines on the left side and just how straight versus curved or tapered the outlines of this thigh is, something about it becomes slightly less rounded, bulbous, 3-dimensional, slightly more like flat. Golden did it. Golden did a couple Jack Kirby like tribute covers for 2 different books. There was that 12-issue series like masterminded by Eric Larson, which was like if Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had done one more year of Fantastic Four, and Golden did 1 or 2 covers for that, and he's doing his own style, but a little bit of Kirby. And then the James Robinson run of Fantastic Four from about 5 years ago, which ended, and then for a couple years there was no Fantastic Four book. Golden did 4 connecting variant covers, and similarly there, he's doing a little bit of Kirby, and in that like Kirby abstracted, folded like paper way, Golden is like some of his drawing is round, like those pouches on Firefly's belt. Like those are three-dimensional. There's something just a little bit about parts of this that are 2-dimensional, which is, I mean this in a really good way, so weird. Like I could never, like I can't explain how it works. It's just like strange and amazing.
I never went there on my own, but I see and agree everything you're talking about. Yeah, it's like those pouches, the boots, like the areas where he can really lay down the inks, but then like the body form, even the other leg with the devices on his thigh. Yeah, it's almost a straight line all the way down the page, but he brings it to life and gives it depth while it's still just sort of basic. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the page of reference that I've got of Firefly that I take to conventions includes this piece on it, by the way.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to look online and see Golden's various convention sketches and commissions. But since his G.I. Joe oeuvre is so small, like thank you all of the art collectors out there who ask Golden to draw G.I. Joe work, and lucky you, Shane, for owning this, and lucky us for getting to see this like sort of like after the fact, because it's not from an issue. This is like a definitive Firefly image because it's so badass.
Yeah, this is one that worked out well. Sometimes for one reason or another, you could have the perfect character for the perfect artist, and sometimes the moons are just not in alignment. Maybe they're having a bad day. They don't feel well. They're in a hurry. Whatever, they're not feeling it. They're just not clicking that day. I mean, we're all people. It happens. But sometimes, yeah, it does not work out the way that it should. But this one's pretty cool. This one worked out well. No complaints.
Yeah,
Even
you could ask. I was going to say, as an example, when the moons aren't aligned, you can ask an amazing artist like Simon Bisley for a Lobo, for example, and depending on the what way the wind is blowing that particular minute, you could have something that is completely poles apart from even a piece done by him the same day, just a few minutes later.
Yeah.
It's
I actually have this experience with Michael Golden at a convention. He was in Boston. I think like the one Boston show he's done, or certainly the first one in a long time, 15 years ago. And I asked for a Cobra Commander, and I was so intimidated. I didn't have any reference. I didn't try and negotiate or inspire or ask questions. It was just like sheepish. I felt like I was in imposition, even though he was there to draw for money. And he drew a very nice pencil Cobra Commander. But it's really similar to the back cover of Yearbook 2. Like inadvertently, Golden was not looking at it or like being lazy. I think he was just drawing Cobra Commander standing there. And it's a really fun drawing, but it's not exciting like this. And there's not like menace. And I love this drawing, but in my mind, it's like, okay, one day I'm going to get Golden to draw something else more excited with like muzzle flare. And like, right. Or like, like there's someone else has a Firefly by Golden where he's like also throwing he's kneeling and he's tossing a grenade. Something's going to be happening.
Yeah.
He Golden is the gaping hole in my collection that I feel like. I think we talked about that on the last time I was on. He is that white whale for me, but I also recognize based on where he is now from a cost perspective, that's it. That's a con weekend for me. I'm okay with that just because of who he is and I remember when Shane got this and seeing it, particularly with the camo work, because this was first, and that other one that you mentioned, Tim, where he's throwing the little grenade. I think he did that just a few months later, but I looked at that, and I'm like, I remember he figured out the camo doing this one. So yeah, it's trying to figure out that right fit, and certainly hit him at the right time. But yeah, he's the one for me to get in that book at some point.
Yep. And another comment in here. Thanks, Badger C7, for your kind words. It's what we're going for. Right.
Oh, that's cool.
Who is up next?
So this is Mike Norton, who did a little bit of G.I. Joe work. This one is this was at the first C2E2. The first year they did C2E2, they started rolling out the guest list, and one of my normal convention partners, John Popa, we started looking at that, and we were like, we gotta go to the show. This looks great, and we found some great deals on flight and hotel, and just booked it, and we had a field day, and the show was kind of weird because that show is blown up. It's insane now. It's huge and popular and crazy. But that year, nobody knew what to make of it. So while it was a big show and it was put together like a big show, it wasn't overly crowded. There was people there, and they were there to buy stuff and get stuff and do whatever. But it was to our advantage. You could get around more. You could spend more time talking to artists and doing that kind of thing. And this is one where Mike Norton, he was actually, if he wasn't sitting with Tim Seeley, they were right by each other, because I got an amazing Zartan head sketch from Tim Seeley. And I don't know that either one of these were like plans. I think they might have been like in the back of my head kind of wish list. But Mike Norton, I'm like, hey, could you draw in my G.I. Joe sketchbook? He's like, oh yeah, that'd be great. I said, I'd like you to draw rock and roll. And he had this look on his face. I'm like, I have reference. He's like, oh, I don't need reference for rock and roll. I can draw rock and roll. I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm like, I have it here. Do you want it? He's like, nope. Okay. So I was like, oh boy, what are we going to get? No. I mean, Mike Norton, his stuff a lot of times can be a little more cartoony. This is a little less cartoony. I love the grittiness of it. You've got the building in the background, the we'll say enemy soldiers there. Rock and roll looks like, yeah, he didn't just walk in off of the showroom floor. He's been out there busting his butt and getting dirty, and I mean, you got dust and everything flowing around. For a convention sketch, like if this is a convention sketch, this is great. some of the stuff they put out now, it's like full-blown commissions. If this was top of the line convention sketch, this is what you're getting. This would be amazing. Super happy with this. And I just love that, yeah, my reference was of no use. He didn't need it. He knew it. And he proved that he knew it. He absolutely did.
The color was his idea?
Yeah. Which he's done that. I have a couple from him where he has colored pencils or whatever. And just, yeah, if it works, I guess, or he's in the mood. I don't know the criteria, but yeah, I've got a couple where he's done that.
What I like about this is Norton is like figuring this drawing out as he's drawing it. Whereas like in the previous drawing, like Golden can see that drawing in his brain and he's almost tracing it like on paper. Like the drawing already exists. He's just like putting the lines where they should be. And as a contrast, it's two things. One, the looseness of this is very much a sketch, right? This is not a drawing. This is not a commission. This is not a page or a cover. And we've talked about this in previous episodes. With my magic wand, artists wouldn't really do like 3-hour sketches at convention. It's like, oh, I'm opening up my list. I'm going to do 4 drawings on Saturday and 4 drawings on Sunday. And that's certainly like better money and easier because it's like, well, if you do like 20 sketches on Saturday and 20 on Sunday, that's actually much more tiring. There's more chances for things to go wrong. It's more to keep track of. Maybe if the artist has a short attention span, it's sort of more exciting to hop on to the next thing. So I look at this, and to me, this is what a convention sketch, like finger quotes, should be. It's
Agreed.
Messy. It's unfinished. It's not. I say this very gently. It's not perfect, right? Like Norton, rock and roll, the leg on the right, his left leg. Like I can see where Norton's sort of knocking it in. And then it's not just because it's smoke. It's not just because it's getting to the bottom of the page. It's because that's not the most important or exciting part of this drawing, right? It's like, okay, face, gun, ammo belts, a little bit of background, smoke. So like this is rough. And I like the whole thing of a convention sketch is that you're getting something that's more the thought process and not like, oh, you spent 2 days on this page. Like, well, if I want that, I'd buy a page. What I really want is for $25 or $100, like something that is messy and not fully figured out.
To me, this is fun. It's he's playing with it. He's, like you said, he's putting it together as he goes, and yeah, I get a huge kick out of this, and yeah, it's great. But yeah, like you said, he didn't plan this out. He wasn't, waiting to use this pose for whoever. He wasn't hoping someone was going to ask him for Punisher, and I asked for rock and roll, so he went with the same pose. No, he's like, all right, what are we going to do? Let's draw rock and roll in the desert. All right, how are we going to do it? He's behind some rubble. All right, yeah, he just makes it up as he goes and makes it work. Yeah.
And thinking back to that Trimpy drawing, this feels like it could be the first year of G.I. Joe. Like, I don't know who those two people are in the background. They're definitely not like Techno Vipers or, like Aero Vipers or Star Vipers. Those are like guys soldiers in a real army in a country, or like a fictional G.I. Joe country, or like Cobra soldiers and Cobra officers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's open-ended. It's not, boom, here's, your favorite issue is G.I. Joe 142.7. Let me draw panel 4 from that. Yeah, no. Here's an action scene.
That I would also happily talk about a drawing recreating issue 147.7, panel 5.
This is more the hot potato era.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Very good.
Good call.
I like just that you've got this blank space here in the top right hand corner, and he's just put these 2 dots, not quite dots, like flick of the brush, just to suggest a birds flying in the sky. And it's such a little thing, but brings a nice balance to the image somehow. Just small but big.
I never paid attention to that. That could be sky strikers coming in from the background.
It could be. It could be a plane. Could be a bird. Could be Superman.
If you ever get a chance to meet Norton at a show and you don't have kids around, ask him to tell you about some of the rejected character pitches they did when he did that Roadblock issue where he worked as the television chef, right? We were talking about that, but we started talking about what he and Seeley came up with some very not family friendly Joes that are absolutely hysterical. So if you get a chance to talk to him, ask him about some of those Joes that they pitched that they were told immediately, like, no way in hell is that ever going to happen.
Hey, John, do you have a Joe sketch from Mike Norton?
I do. I ran into him at Awesome Con a few years ago. He was just there, like, for the weekend. I didn't know he was even going to be there. He did a tunnel rat for me. And it's got a little bit of gray tone in it. It's not colored like this, but yeah, we started talking about Joe. We talked about that because I love that issue that he did of Roadblock as the TV chef. And yeah, we talked for a bit and then he knocked it out. I said, pick whoever you want. He's like, I want to do tunnel rat. And he's just got a pistol. He doesn't have any other big gun.
See, that's good. Great. That's
and he's coming up. It looks like he's coming up out of the hole, like up out of the ground. It's a nice little piece.
Do I know that piece, John? Is it online?
I think so. I'll make sure you see it if not.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look because that sounds awesome.
I was just saying that you can see that there's some, I think, grey tone work here underneath the coloured pencils, sort of just to the right of Rock and Roll's head. You can wake out a bit there, and running along the top of the gun. So he's having some fun with mixed media.
And I might be wrong, but I'm guessing that the colored pencils is something he used to do, and then he's moved on to the black and white tones. Because I've gotten one or two from him since, and they've been the tones. It hasn't been the colored pencil. So that might be something he transitioned through.
Maybe he just left them at home before a certain convention.
Yeah, when I saw him, I don't know if he was really planning to draw much. He didn't have much set up at the table, and I think it was one of those, hey, I happened to. Why you'd happen to be in DC, but I think it was a last minute kind of thing is what I gathered.
Shane, you obviously have to bring colored pencils and a warm gray Copic marker the next time you get a Norton sketch to just offer him the full range, right? He's not going to need your reference.
I offer you either of these, sir. Would you like some water? How about some Copic markers?
Yeah, you say that, but I do have often when I go to con, I do bring along a little pencil case of various art materials in case the artist is running low on whatever they've not brought their full accompaniment. So it has come in
marker getting stuff signed. I got a head sketch from George Perez of Kid Flash at a convention, and I wasn't the first guy in line, or maybe I was. Because George is like, he didn't have like his blue line pencil to rough it out. He said, I need a pencil. And there's a couple people talking behind the table, and somebody said, oh, here you go. And they have him a pencil. And it was a red pencil. He made one line, and he got not like crazy irate mad, but you could tell like it totally threw him off. He's like, I can't use this. What are you doing? I can't use this red pencil. And they weren't paying attention even though it was a red pencil. He asked for a pencil. They hand him a pencil. But yeah, it was not what he had planned.
I was just going to share an example of where my preparedness paid off. So this is Lobo custom bound book, and I was talking about Simon Bisley. There we go.
Heck yeah.
Raw. And he was like, those are. I was saying, yeah. Do you want to borrow my red pen?
That's awesome. That's great.
The other option.
If you're getting a Lobo, you need the red eyes.
You could also, it's like, oh no, I forgot my red pen. It's like, Mr. Bisley, would you be offended if in 3 days when I get home I fill in the eyes red? We just sort of pretend you did it. Like I'll never like sell this as like 100% you. I'd say like I ruined it with the eyes. But like, do I have your permission?
The inverse of that was I got a sketch from Brian Bolland, and this would be about 1995 or so, UCAC, UK Comic Art Convention, when he was still sketching, and he drew me a magnificent Joker sketch, but some of the workings out is still visible in the ink, because it was mostly straight to ink, and so there's kind of a line kind of crossing the bridge of his nose, and he's like, yeah, when you get home, you can just take some Tipex to that and white it out. And I was like, yeah, that's not happening. I am not going to take white out to a Brian Bolland.
I'm going to try the opposite. If I ever meet Bisley, I'm going to just draw 2 red diamonds in the middle of a page. I'm going to say, can you do Lobo's face around this? My friend Mark said.
Well, if you're just coloring in the eyes, you could give yourself credit as colorist then.
Enhancements
let's move on to the next one. Have we got any guesses on the artist from
I know who it is.
John?
I say John knows. I know
who it is.
I don't think Tim's going to get it.
He's done
I got the name.
Is this John Boy Mayers?
No, it is not.
Oh, Jeremy. Wow, cool.
Cool. I have a couple from Jeremy in the Joe collection. This is one that Jeremy cussed me for, because I asked him to draw, according to him, a refrigerator. He's like, all the Joe characters, and he asked me to draw a refrigerator. That's great. I'm like, but it's the coolest looking refrigerator ever. Like, that should be package art. Jeremy was he was one of the first guys in the sketchbook. He did a Snake Eyes probably in one of the first, I'd say, 10 sketches in the sketchbook. And he did a flamethrower from the October Guard. I'm blanking on his name.
Dragunov.
Yes, thank you. And I'm not sure if there was more, but for whatever reason, I'm not sure how I came up with this reason to have him do this snake armor. And he was like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, that looks cool. That looks fun. And he took it home with him that night. It was at Dragon Con in Atlanta when they were living down there. And the next day he brought it back, and I'm like, wow. And he's like, why'd you ask me to draw you a refrigerator? All those cool characters. Kelly Dale still gives me crap about that. Still. But Jeremy knows G.I. Joe. Jeremy definitely was a G.I. Joe fan. The fact that I asked him to draw a refrigerator with legs, he did not shy away from. He embraced it. I don't think you could have more chaos and commotion going on in that. And the snake armor was pretty darn cool.
Yeah, I think we had a snake armor in your collection when we were looking at it, John, right? Was that Brian Shearer?
Brian Shearer, yeah. When the guy was putting the stickers on on their armor.
That's a great.
The only 2 snake armor.
There's probably not many, but I adore this one.
The variety of shapes, right? The like thin, jagged lines for bullets, and then the side of the brush pen on the right, where the black is for the explosion, and then the puffy smoke clouds, and then the very crisp, like curvy lines of the actual armor. The really, really nicely spotted black ink on the left, the arm on the left, its right arm with the missile. This is lots of fun. I will probably never get excited about the snake armor. I like it. It's hard to get excited about it.
It's a refrigerator.
It's slow and lumbering. Also, it's confusing to me as a kid. Is it a guy in the suit? Is it an autonomous robot? Yes. The cartoon suggests one. It was never in the comic. The toy's confusing because it's got that piece of plastic that keeps it together. But this drawing sure gives it a bunch of life and potential. And so based on how lumbering it is in the show, I would never expect it to bend its legs this much in an action scene. So
it's almost like he's about to leap or something, isn't it? It's
he's probably getting knocked over by an explosion. He's trying to stand up.
Could be, yeah.
Something that always
creative
catches my eye with this is both legs. He drew different detail on both legs. Mm-hmm. The one leg, it's got almost like some kind of like accordion design going on and armor plating, and the other leg is more basic. But it's the snake armor. It totally works. It doesn't.
I wonder if that's reflecting how the arms are different from each other too.
It could be.
I've never thought this until looking at this particular drawing. Sometimes you see something in one universe or toy line or like license that feels like it was. It reminds you of something from another one. You know, it's like there's a guy in Star Wars to me that sort of looks like he wandered in from He-Man and the Masters Universe. Looking at this, I feel like I finally see the like Star Wars and Transformers. I know this predates Transformers, but I'm sort of seeing this as like part Star Wars and part Transformer. And if you think I'm just coming up with something arbitrary, I'm happy to not say anything else about this.
That makes total sense.
Because the snake armor has always been in the like Cobra design ethos off to the side. And like G.I. Joe 82, 83, 84 was like very much either not inspired by Star Wars, but like existing in a post Star Wars world. You know, like anytime the show was a little bit more fantastical, it's like, is that because of Star Wars? And anytime the toy is a little more fantastical, you know, even that could be like a second generation, like sort of Star Wars suggestion, because, you know, Star Wars is just in the water and in the air by 85. But in a good way. I don't say this in a bad way, but it's like, I look at this sideways and it's like, I see the Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. I can see that, yeah. And a droid or some kind of environmental,
like the Dark Troopers, that they had,
or the
big ones.
What was the Space Troopers?
Yeah, yep.
From the Dark Horse comics. So do you guys? For you guys, is this a guy in a suit or is this an autonomous robot?
Like you, I was always confused. I mean, in the cartoon, didn't they put it on at one point? Didn't somebody climb into one of the miniseries? I know they were like sentries. They were like automated sentries, but I thought like Snake Eyes climbed into one at some point or something. I know in the comics they did it one time, but this is earlier. This is one of the earlier years that the Snake came out. I know that just from being a kid and having the toy. So they were probably still, you know, throwing ideas and seeing what stuck, and they didn't quite have with Cobra, you know, you had more room to play. But I liked it because it was very versatile. You could use it as a robot. You could use it as, you know, brainwashing. I like the idea that there's a brainwashed, you know, Joe in there, and you can't really blow it up. How do you save them?
It's good.
I was going to say, Shane, that you mentioned that you kind of gravitate towards creators who are nice guys, and I think Jeremy Dale's kind of. Anytime I hear his name mentioned, people say what a nice guy he was. Was that kind of your experience? That
he was a fun guy. He was, well, nice isn't the right word. He was fun, just fun to be around. Even if you were like, you're waiting to get some books signed by him, and you're three guys back in line, I guarantee you had a good time just listening to him chatting with people. He wasn't there. He didn't think too highly of himself. He was a fan, but he enjoyed this. He enjoyed the industry. He enjoyed drawing. He enjoyed being part of this world. So being at conventions and getting to see him, that he was in his glory. He was great. And he was there to talk to everyone and have a good time and do all that. He, the last piece I got from Jeremy, I have an X-Men collection. I asked him to draw some X-Babies for me for the X-Men collection, because Jeremy's got that cartoony style. And when I picked it up from Jeremy at the convention, because it was a pre-order, he had Mojo and like the entire X-Men team of X-Babies. And then he told me that was the second drawing of it, because the first drawing, he had taken it with him and traveled on the plane. and something got spilled and that got damaged and ruined, so he had to redo it all. And he said it was completely different, and he said this one was way better, besides the fact that the other one got ruined. And I felt so bad that he had to draw it twice. He's like, why? He's like, this one, like, I got all the bad ideas out on that one. This one was way better, and he loved it. But the fact that he had to draw, you know, Mojo and the X-Babies back to back as a pre-order convention sketch was just ridiculous to me. And he could have cared less. When IDW started doing the hardcovers and they put the Hasbro comics that came packaged with the 2-packs, they inserted those in chronologically where they would fit. And Jeremy had the, I don't know how it's numbered, but the follow-up to issue 21.
21B.
Fell between the scenes. I took that hardcover to Jeremy to sign, and he's like, I don't have anything in here. He had no idea that book was in there, that they had done that. So got to tell him, and he was over the moon. He was ready to do backflips. He was so excited and thrilled. And he still thanked me for that. But the couple of times I saw him after that, he's like, you're the one that told me. I didn't know that was in there, and you're the one that told me because you brought that book up. I'm like, it's all good, you know. We all look out for each other. But yeah, he's one of the guys. If he was on here, if he'd be on here talking with us right now, it would be the same, other than we'd just be sitting back and laughing because he's got some stories to tell, and he was a funny guy.
I've got 2 stories to tell about artists and unfortunate incidents with art that I know. One is, do you know the book Where's Wookiee, the Star Wars book? It's like Where's Wally, Where's Waldo, but with Chewbacca. Yeah. The art is by this incredible artist called Ulysses Varinas, who did I think some Judge Dredd art for IDW. Bit, you know, very kind of in the vein of Jeff Darrow, lots of detail. And he was doing one of these massive Where's Wally style spreads and spilt I think it was ink. He knocked his ink bottle or something and all across the page, and he had to go back and redo this incredibly detailed page that he was working on. Another story was I think Steve Dillon working on a Judge Dredd strip, and he'd been out to the pub and with his art folder, and he got back home and he didn't have it. And he's like, oh no, you know, lost the art, you know, disaster. It's got to get to print for, you know, next day. So he does an all-nighter, borrows in lots of favors, redraws the, you know, whatever it's 5-page Judge Dredd strip. And then the next day, you know, gets a call from the pub and letting him know that he's left his art behind. Okay. Next up, we have something that is maybe my favorite from these pieces. No, second favorite, Michael Golden. This is incredible.
Yeah, so this is the opening. When you open up the sketchbook, that's what you open it up to.
Okay, that's page 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Is this Brian Stelfreeze?
It is.
Wow. A marker
He's
original.
a master of color.
Wow.
When I decided to do the Joe sketchbook, I think we were at a comic book show, and they had like an old Heroes Con program guide, like in the dollar box or whatever. And we were thumbing through it, and Brian Stelfreeze, whatever year that was, must have wrote his own bio and said that in his spare time, he liked to team up and go on adventures with Snake Eyes. And so I decided when I started my Joe book, I was going to have Brian Stelfreeze do Snake Eyes, based 100% on that throwaway line in his bio. So when I met Stelfreeze, I asked him if he would do that, and he was all about it. And he said, but tell you what, he said, let me take it with me, and so I can spend some time with it, and I can, you know, do it back at the studio, and I'll mail it to you. Great. He's like, here's my email. And this was at Heroes Con, which we generally saw him every year. Here's my email. You know, you can reach out to me. It's no problem. Well, I never heard from Brian Stelfreeze for that year. I did email him. My emails were not answered. So the next year at Heroes, I was not sure what to do. So I brought a new blank sketchbook. I mean, it's 15, 20 bucks. I took that and I walked up to Brian Stelfreeze, and he points at me after a year and goes, "Snake eyes." And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "I don't have it." I'm like, okay. Like, is it done? He's like, "I don't have your book here, but I can have it here tomorrow." I'm like, "Well, did you do it?" He's like, "No." I said, "Then don't worry about the book. I bought a new one." He's like, "Give it here." And I swear he just like grabbed it and started painting right then and there. So he worked on this throughout the convention, and it's painting, so he couldn't work on it nonstop. He'd have to let it dry. So initially he just grabbed that light blue that you see at the bottom. That's all that it was just that light blue. And he would work on it. He'd just like take a step back and be like, "Yeah, I just got to see how it talks to me." He grabbed some purple and threw some purple down, and the next thing you know, there's yellow. And that was also the convention when I first met Robert Atkins, and told Robert Atkins I was kind of lining up. Like, I didn't know how things were going to work out with Stelfreeze. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I was going to have Robert do something, and Jeremy Hahn. And those guys are both like, "Yeah, well, Stelfreeze is like, yeah, I'm doing it." So he started doing it. So I told those guys. So when it would be sort of dry, but Stelfreeze didn't have time, I ran it over to Robert Atkins, and then took it back to Stelfreeze, and then ran it over to Jeremy Hahn, and then ran it back to Stelfreeze. And so Robert and Jeremy worked on it while this was so they're like going back and looking at it, then sketching out their stuff, going back, looking at it. So when it was done, I had to go show them the finished product. But it's pretty impressive. This is one of those pieces that, like, looking at it now, like it's crazy me to realize like that's mine. Like that's my collection. It's sitting right here, but to look at it on the screen there, I'm like, wow, yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, Brian said, he's like, "I take the first sketch in a sketchbook very seriously," and he told me the truth. He does take it very seriously, and yeah, I don't know if he actually goes on adventures with Snake Eyes, but it kind of looks like, he does. It looks like he's been somewhere with Snake Eyes and he knows some things. I don't know.
Was that the only reference to G.I. Joe in that bio?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. Regardless, even if it would have been like just that head on one page, it still would have been cool. I mean, it's phenomenal now, but if it would have just been the head and no swords and nothing else, just the head, it would have been cool. And it would have been Brian Stelfreeze on the first page. And I have a pencil sketch from Brian in my X-Men collection of Iceman that is extremely cool. It's weird because you see it's Brian Stelfreeze, but it's a pencil sketch because it's from, I'm sure, the early 90s. But all the stylized lineage is all there, and it works great for Iceman. It works great for his form and him like shooting an ice blast. It's all kind of funky, but it works perfect for that character.
What's really striking about this is that it's all done with 4 colors. It's just the red, the yellow, the orange, the blue. I guess and then the violet. I guess there are 2 blues and then the violet. So this is all done with 6 colors and then a little bit of black. So where you see a little bit of green on like the left visor, right up against the red. Yeah. Can you zoom in, Mark? Like that's not green. That's where blue and yellow are crossing, and the same thing happens on the handle of the. Yeah, it's like you think you see green, but that's not an applied green. That's a mix. It's also exciting to see. His stuff is so angular, so design influenced, and so like architectural when he draws people or stuff. And I feel like it's gotten a little bit more in that direction over the years. Like there was sort of a more rounded quality to it when he was painting all those Batman Shadow of the Bat covers in the 90s. And, you know, like you look at his sequential work on Day Men or Black Panther, and it's, you know, it's changed over time. And because this is, finger quotes, just a sketch, this is imperfect. You know, it's like a little lumpy here, the line's a little wiggly here, and it's still so architectural. There's so much of a sense of design, right? Like adherence to geometric shapes and composition. Like these two or three like errant orange lines that we're seeing on the top right, the negative space between the back of his head and the first sword. Like those are just brushstrokes. Those don't line up with any sort of building in the background. They're not like motion lines or anything, and they're not mistakes. But they're those three lines. Like they don't imply anything besides like, well, it's a sketch and there are going to be some lines on the paper, and it's. I'm trying to say something fancier than it's nice to see that Stelfreeze can draw something imperfect, because so much of his covers and art, it just like feels like crisp perfection. But it's nice to see that Stelfreeze can draw some things that aren't perfect. But it's still, you sort of like, you have to like rub your eyes, because it's like, well, this isn't perfect because it's still just a sketch, but it's kind of perfect.
Yeah,
it's still all there.
When you're taking it in at first and you're a little bit further away, you get the overall impression, and then as you zoom in and look at the detail, you can kind of see the construction of it. It's really impressive how he's accomplishing what he's doing, because, you know, like on the visor of the mask, you've got these just purple lines, which, you know, why purple? You know, that does that make any logical sense? Not maybe especially, but it just works. And the white on the other side, the you know, in the with the different lights, you know, just really making it feel like this solid 3D object, and yet still clearly a beautiful impressionistic painting. It's quite something to behold.
What I love about Brian and his, well, not necessarily his work, but if you talk to any artist that has met Brian, they will tell you that even if they thought they understood color theory, they didn't until they talked to Brian and he explained it to them. Brian is like an actual Jedi master of color theory. And I'm not an artist. I enjoy art. I've picked up some tidbits along the way, just like I'm sure all of you guys have. And if I can use that to explain a concept or an idea or something like that, then I'm excited about that. So the fact that these guys who went to art school and they're making a living doing this, and this is their world, and they can spend a couple hours with Brian Stelfreeze, and it opens up like another level to them, another ability to understand what they're doing and what they're working on. It just blows me away that is like that. Like Brian to me is like an earthly treasure. Like we can never lose him. He's too important to the world of art. The other thing that maybe I'm a proud papa in this case, maybe I'm full of it, but I feel like sometimes if an artist is not a G.I. Joe artist, or maybe even if they are, they can draw something and it doesn't feel like G.I. Joe. It just feels like a drawing. Yeah, it's a guy in an army uniform with a gun, or that could be G.I. Joe. I don't know. To me, even though this is Snake Eyes, this feels like G.I. Joe, not just because it's Snake Eyes. Like this feels like it came from something, or it's a part of something. I don't know. It feels G.I. Joe to me, which is great, because when someone would open up the book to work on it, a lot of them would slam the book down and want to give it back. They're like, I'm not drawing in this. That's the first page. This is how you start the book. I've got my buddy Andy airbrush that Arashikage symbol on the front, and then you open it up to that. They're like, no, I'm not. We painted Snake Eyes. I'm not drawing in this.
And you say to them like, no, it's okay, because you're going to draw for 10 minutes or an hour. Stelfreeze took this book for a year. Shane, can I suggest that
a different book?
Can I suggest you, in a future date, commission Stelfreeze to draw or paint the companion piece, which could be the final page and the inside back cover of a sketchbook, and it's Brian Stelfreeze in sort of the mirror, I guess the mirror image, like negative space to the left, and then you can complete the circle of the sentence from that bio from the convention brochure, and maybe he'd be a little easier on himself just drawing himself or painting himself, because it's not like a famous character.
Something like that has never crossed my mind. Brian,
you're welcome.
Is such a laid back, like fun loving guy. I bet he would go for that. I can see him being excited about that.
And if it's too weird, if he's like, well, I don't want to draw myself, maybe you can like, well, are you like 10% a G.I. Joe good guy or Cobra bad guy in this scenario? Like maybe you've got a little bit of Storm Shadow's white uniform down here, but it's still you. I should go this way. It's still you. Still you. Yeah. Like that.
Creates himself as a G.I. Joe outfit, because he likes those, funky hats, doesn't he, that he wears. And yeah, you can just stretch up a notch to G.I. Joeify it until he's actually a G.I. Joe team member himself.
Well, I can't wait to see Brian Stelfreeze again now.
Warm and cool. Orange, yellow, orange, red, warm in the background, blue, green, purple in the foreground. This creates a separation. This is like one of those rules that not just comics artists, but any artist can fall back on to create a separation between two planes or two objects. And then there's this really big highlight here, which is just the white of the paper left white, which is like not a thing that happens as often in comics as it could, particularly in the, after like 1995. I feel like before then, colorists were often thinking like they're using Doc Martens dyes, they're painting onto color guides, 8.5 by 11 photocopies of the inked pages, and they're thinking of the paper that this will get printed on. And I feel like it's a different thought process for a lot of colorists who are sitting at a computer working in Photoshop, where they're not working on paper. And even though it's going to get printed on paper, they're also thinking it's going to be a digital file like RGB versus CMYK. Whereas Stelfreeze here, it's like all 10 fingers are touching this paper all day long. And it's like, that highlight could be yellow, it could be pink, or it could just be the white of the page.
My buddy Popo, when literally Stelfreeze was working on it, my buddy Popo at one point walked up to him and was standing there chatting with him, and Brian was just standing back, like it's laying there on the table, and he's just standing there looking at it, and he's like, I think a little purple. He just grabs the purple, throws it on there. I will say on my this is on Comic Art Fans, and the image we're looking at now is a new scan that I sent just for the show today. The picture on Comic Art Fans is just a photo I took of it back when I got it. But as a additional image, I also have a picture of it when it was just blues. So none of the yellow, purple, green, any of that, just blue, dark blue, light blue, and white. So if you want to take a look at that some point, that's that image exists on there.
See if I could beat the clock and call it up while we were talking. Let me see.
Snake Eye should be a pretty quick sketch on Comic Art Fans.
Is this? Are we ending on this one, Mark? Because no offense to any other artist ever, but because I it's it could be a tough act to follow this one in our. Ooh, cool. That also would have been totally awesome if he'd stopped right there.
Sure. Yeah.
Oops. There we go.
It wasn't done talking to him. It had more to say.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So if
Yeah.
memory serves, I
could've
snapped
stopped
this at one point when I was running it over to Robert or Jeremy to work on theirs. While I had it in my hands for a minute, I snapped this picture quick.
Good man.
Nice. So to your question, there are more in the list. So
It's fine. It's these, you know,
I
these are all
padded
different.
the list a little bit. I sent a couple extra, so if we needed to, there was more. I mean, it's like trying to pick your favorite children. I mean, we could go on, and I kept it. Other than one of the extras, I kept it just sketches in the sketchbook. I didn't go commissions or original pages or anything like that. I tried to keep it confined to the sketchbook.
Any sketch after this is still going to be great because they're all no, I'm serious. They're all on a different scale. You know, it's like this is like a paint master, color master, like design whiz who's not affiliated with GI Joe, and if the next one is like someone new to the industry or someone from the indie scene or like a Joe veteran, we can like, you know, sort of rubberize and take a sip of water as a palate cleanser. And it's like, what's the new context for the next drawing that's going to be awesome for different reasons?
Let's see, shall we?
Oh,
Ooh, fun.
so this is Daryl Banks, who
Nice.
I talked about earlier. That we're big fans, we're big friends. He again, he's one of our many nominees for nicest guy ever. Friendly. He's a huge comic book fan. He has as many stories about meeting his legends in the industry and being starstruck as any of us do. This is one that, because I see Daryl often, I believe I gave him my book at a show, and then he was doing a local store signing a couple weeks later, so he brought it to the store signing to pick up. I will say that this one, continuity buffs may have some issues with this because those two costumes for the characters don't technically line up. That is a Robert Atkins Storm Shadow design and the Resolute Snake Eyes design. So they don't.
Here we go. This guy.
But the tank in the background, that's all Daryl. The Arashikage symbol, that's all Daryl. I asked for Snake Eyes versus Storm Shadow. We looked at a couple different references and uniforms, and he liked that Storm Shadow, and he couldn't decide on Snake Eyes. So I picked the Resolute because it's my favorite overall Snake Eyes design. But I think they match up well. I mean, the Resolute design looks very similar to a Robert Atkins design, I think, but.
If this was a cover or a story, I would scratch my head and say, those two costumes can't meet. But for a convention sketch, wonderful. And all bets are off.
Well, I mean, with both of them, I mean, all their costumes are variations. There's not a lot where it's completely something different. So one of them just grabbed the not matching uniform out of the closet that day, I guess. I don't know.
Eco Warriors Snake Eyes versus Star Brigade Battletech Storm Shadow Armor Tech, excuse me. It's a fun contrast that you've got the the bad guy in white and the good guy in black. One's on the ground, one's up in the air. They've each got, there's some things that are different about them, and there's some things that are the same about them, right? Each one has a hand straight out. Each one is holding a single weapon. So it feels evenly matched, even if maybe Snake Eyes is more on the offense and Storm Shadow at this moment is more on the defense. I like the invented his ?
Daryl's a big toy guy, so I don't know if there's if he pulled that from a toy design, if that's a combination, if it's maybe wasn't a different tank, not a Hiss tank. I'm not up on all the Hiss variants, so I don't claim to be a Hiss expert, but it's still a Cobra tank.
Great textures too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, it looks like he's maybe created a signature for himself in Japanese script down there in the bottom right.
Yeah, is that a way that Banks has signed other artwork for you, Shane?
No, that's just for this piece.
It looks smacks of maybe doing some research to try and figure out what Banks might look like in Japanese script, perhaps. But yeah, going the extra mile.
It's fun to see
Go ahead, Tim.
It's fun to see the Resolute costume, since Resolute occupies such a narrow sort of width in the G.I. Joe timeline, and like there were toys designed that looked like the cartoon that weren't released, and then also the Resolute Snake Eyes is not black; it's gray, the thing that Mark just held up, and this Snake Eyes here is reading as dark gray or black.
Yeah, it's a very popular version of Snake Eyes in the toy community. Just a very satisfying design and well articulated. And he's got this short sword on his back that sort of tucks into the belt as well. So there's a lot of elements to like. And I've seen people sort of rating their favorite Snake Eyes, and this one appearing very much towards the top of it. Should we push on through to get to the end of the list?
Yeah.
Quick fire. Okay.
Cool.
So I know lots of Joe fans have Larry Hama art. I'm not unique in that. I'm not saying I am. But this piece was the last page in the sketchbook. This was the final page, which I say to Larry. I'm a fan of the Navy SEALs in general. So I've always liked Torpedo and Wetsuit. I learned about the SEALs when I was in high school, which was not that many years after being a Joe fan. I was still a Joe fan through high school. One of my best friends in high school was a fan of the Marine Corps. So we always gravitated to Wetsuit and Leatherneck in their bickering from the cartoon. But for my last page, I went back and forth a lot on what I wanted for the last page. And I came up with a lot of crazy concepts and characters, and finally decided I was going to go with Larry, and I was going to go with Torpedo and Wetsuit because I wanted the two SEAL characters because I did not have anything representing them. And Larry initially did not want to draw them in uniform. He wanted to do them in fatigues. And he asked me, can I draw them in fatigues? And I hesitated, and he said, oh, you want them in costume so they're recognizable. And I was like, yeah, I kind of do. Like, I like when he puts them in fatigues on a land mission. I like that they're not running around with flippers on, like the early comics or the cartoons. But yeah, I wanted them to be them. I do like that he gave them more realistic weapons. I'm a fan of that.
And I think this sword that Torpedo's using is his go-to weapon of choice for Torpedo from the comics of late.
If I am correct, and I used to be more up on this, I believe it could be a saw, but I believe it's the Stoner machine gun, which came before the saw, and the SEALs used in Vietnam, which in the annual where Torpedo and Wetsuit go to Cobra Island, they have a Stoner, and they have a it's a grease gun, but I just blanked on it. I used to know the name of it. I used to know the make and model, and they were popular Vietnam era SEAL weapons. So I believe that's the Stoner, but the Stoner, the saw, the M60, they're all the same general family concept, I guess.
Yeah, I will defer to you on that one. I won't claim to be an expert on weaponry.
He did give Wetsuit the M16 AR style rifle, not the Vietnam submachine gun that I was talking about. That I can't. That's gonna drive me nuts.
Mark, can we see the bottom half in close up?
Yep.
I like that wave on the right. That they're coming out of the ocean. This is on the beach.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah, they're coming up out of the water.
It's here this sort of subtle impression of the a wave coming up and breaking on the as it's coming into the shore. And Larry does. I've seen a fair few sketches from him where people are wading through marshy lands or whatnot, and he does do a good kind of splash or ripple effect as people are moving through water. Nice. Let's move on.
Brian Hurt, nice. Oh,
Brian Hurt. Brian Hurt is the artist that I talked about earlier that gave me a list of characters that he would like to draw should the book make it back to him. The first characters he did for me were Destro and Baroness, in which he asked if he could draw them together, and I said sure. And then when I went to pay him, I paid him for a 2-character sketch, and he said, "You gave me too much money." And I said, "Well, no, it's 2 characters." He said, "I asked to draw 2 characters. You didn't ask me to." Thanks for watching. So Zartan was one of the other characters he wanted to draw. So when I got the opportunity to get the book back to him, now that you've zoomed in, you can tell just the shadows from the tree that he's in. I feel like that also kind of plays with the camouflage aspect of the character. The fact that he gave him a bow, I think, shows that Brian Hurt knows a G.I. Joe. I mean, doesn't just have a gun or knife or whatever. The fact that he's in a tree, I mean, that's a scene. That's not just he's on a metal floor or in front of a wall. He's up in a tree about to take somebody out. It's just a cool piece.
The Sixth Gun, the series, The Sixth Gun that Cullen Bunn wrote and Brian Hurt drew at Oni. It's one of my go-to recommendations at my store. Both the actual series and the 3 or 4 tie-in spin-off books. So viewers and listeners, if you want a good 70 issue, like what is it total? 9 paperbacks roughly. The Sixth Gun.
The Sixth
And
Gun is great.
their issue 21 was silent, wasn't it? If I recall.
Really?
I think so. Shane, do you remember?
I do not remember.
I think they made. I thought they had a silent issue. I
don't remember that.
I remember talking to Colin and Brian at a free comic book day about Joe, because we were talking about your sketchbook, Shane. I swear I thought they had a silent story somewhere in there.
Huh. I read that series like a year ago. I was recommending it long before that because I'd read the first issue.
Maybe Colin. Maybe he was thinking about how could we do one. I don't know. That was a long time ago.
Very cool. If true, very cool. And if not, fun idea.
Okay, great. Yeah, amazing. Just amazing. Sort of this grey tones that he's using for the background and the shadows that are being cast on Zartan. It's a great use of tones. Okay, what we got next?
Tunnel Rat, not with a belt-fed machine gun. So this, I believe, was my first sketch from Shannon. This started the trend of Shannon having Joe's murdering Disney characters.
This was the first, was it?
Yeah, as far as I know, because he seemed pretty tickled with himself, and I thought it was pretty clever that Tunnel Rat.
Where did the idea come from?
Shannon, something he came. I just asked for Tunnel Rat. Wow. He incorporated the Tunnel Rat had killed Winnie the Pooh. He came up with that aspect on his own. Apparently, he figured Pooh Bear lives in a hole in the ground, and Tunnel Rat goes in holes, so Tunnel Rat fragged him out.
Huh.
Is the speech bubble there says "silly dead bear,"
which is a play on
with torpedo harpooned Nemo. I've got that in my collection. Again, I asked for Torpedo, and I got that. I feel like there was one in between, but then I got a Breaker sketch from him, and I specifically asked for Breaker from the comics, not with the full beard. I like Breaker from the comics where he's got like some stubble or whatever. So I forget the actual joke, but it's something along the lines of Breaker has gum all over his face and his hands where his chewing gum bubble popped. And he makes some comment along the lines of, good thing I don't have a beard because he's got chewing gum all over it. And then he had to put it in color because he realized he had this weird sticky substance all over the place. And he needed to put it in color so it was in proper context and nobody took it the wrong way. There was a lot.
Because there used to be the guy that ran around Heroes with the glue sketchbook.
Yeah. He liked characters.
He wanted all the characters drawn, being in glue.
Hmm. Well, back to this drawing. It's nice to see Gallant's work just as pencils and so tight because for so long, sort of mostly what we saw, all we saw was his work inked and almost always inked by someone else. And it's fun to see sort of the unfiltered Gallant, even if him making himself or someone else inking him or his straight pencils all still do look pretty similar.
Yeah, it's a great sketch. I mean, even as like official convention sketches go, this is still kind of elaborate. I mean, like I said, nowadays, you're getting like a full-blown commission when you get a convention sketch, but this, there's a little bit more to it. He spent, a little bit more time on it, but it's penciled. It's not super perfect, even though Shannon's art always feels very precise. Mm-hmm. Being pencil, it's got some energy to it. Going back talking about Darryl Banks again, knowing him all these years, Darryl transitioned from doing pencil convention sketches to doing inks. And then for a while, he had both options. And I was really torn with that because he's got so much pencil or energy in his pencils. His inks are really solid and look really finished, but his pencils are really precise. And there's a lot of energy there that even though it's still great art, I feel like you lose a little bit of that in the inks. And I'm always torn on that when given that option now. I hate that because, inks, it looks more finished, it looks fancier, it looks prettier. But sometimes you lose a little bit. It's just a different feel.
Sure. Okay, I think we're coming into the home straight now. This is either last one or last one but one. Okay. Last but one.
So this one I picked because this is an example of, this is by Derek Donovan. This was a Heroes Con sketch. I did not ask Derek Donovan to draw this. I did not have any plans on speaking with Derek Donovan. Nothing against him. I just didn't really know him. I was there talking to the artist next to Derek Donovan, asking him to draw in the Joe book. And that guy was fine drawing in the Joe book, but he wasn't like a Joe fan. It wasn't doing anything for him. He didn't really care. In the meantime, Derek Donovan made it very clear. He was like a hyper little puppy. Do you have a G.I. Joe book? Joe book. What's on the next page? Who's there? Do you have Serpentor? Could I draw Serpentor? And I'm like, Derek Donovan, would you like to draw in my G.I. Joe book? So yeah, I mean, it's a super cool sketch. At this point in time, my Serpentor art was made, or reference was made up of different looks. So this was there. The more later, like action figure armored look was in there. And I mean, he chose this, which I think is cool. To me, that shows, he's an old school fan, original, like first appearance comic book Serpentor.
Orange pants. We call him Orange Pants Serpentor.
Yes, correct. Yeah. But yeah, when the artist is all but chasing you down because you have a G.I. Joe book and they want to draw on it, it's hard to say no.
Do you charge then?
Doesn't quite work that way.
You say that, Tim, though, but I have been in a situation where I have received, well, there has been an exchange of monies coming this way from the artist, which was where James, my son, went to his first big Comic Con, and very, very excited. Spent ages beforehand, sort of looking at all of who's going to be attending and what they were doing, and coming up with ideas of drawing their characters and that kind of thing. And when he went along, he had an art book of his art folder of his own, and he would typically say, to them, I drew this for you, and he went up to Cameron Stewart and gave him a Batgirl that he'd drawn for, and he said, drew this for you. It's a gift for you. And he said, no, you shouldn't undervalue your art. This is worth something. I gave him £5, and I said, you can't do that. You can no, it's my money, it's my decision. This is for him. You buy him something nice from the con. And it was just a lovely experience for James to be recognized like that by an artist, and real generosity.
And then Cameron Stewart charged you £105 for a Batgirl sketch from him.
No, he did a Batgirl sketch for James for free in his sketchbook. And then I previously, I think I've shared this before, I previously bought a Two-Face sketch from him. I think that's the only sketch that I have bought from him. Yeah. But yeah, nice encounter. So was there something about this particular sketch other than the enthusiasm from Derek Donovan about the prospect
I've never had a sketch from Derek before. I'd never met Derek before. I was aware of his work.
Is this before his Youngblood or after?
I want to say after, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
I enjoy his work. No, that's fine. But no, like I said, I was trying to set something up with somebody else who did draw in the book, but it was just a convention sketch to them. They didn't, there was no experience or cool notes to it. But there was for Derek Donovan. Yeah, if you ever wanted a GI sketch from Derek Donovan, he's on board.
This piece has a really nice sense of light. Like light source is from the top left. And the inking is all really clear, and I'd love to see this with some hard edge colors and not with renders and gradients.
So I think a lot of his a lot of the work that I've seen from him done as sketches at conventions or as home commissions have been in color, if I'm remembering correctly, and maybe that's something that he's been doing more recently.
Yeah, I know he's been doing color stuff.
Shane, this Eco Warrior Snake Eyes versus Star Brigade Armor Tech Storm Shadow that you clearly need. Maybe Derek Donovan's the guy to draw that in color in a future sketchbook.
Maybe he'll be like, those don't match. I'm not drawing that.
But he might be such a fan. He'd be like, I will invent these costumes for you.
We'll see. Well, I'll talk to him about it. We'll see.
Okay, should we move on to the last one here?
So this one is not
a convention sketch.
In the sketchbook. Yeah, this one I stray. This is a cover to a trade paperback, G.I. Joe Special Missions Volume 2 by Robert Atkins. I included this one because I have there's a lot of great artists that we couldn't share today. I couldn't get to them all. Robert's one of them that I became friends with, and Robert's a friendly guy. I think a lot of Joe fans have become friends with him. But I paid for a commission, and we were talking about what that commission would be. And through that conversation, he told me that he had a cover that he had drawn that he didn't know what it was going to be for. They just told him to draw 4 or 5 Joe characters in their classic looks. And it was going to be one of 4 covers. And that for all of these covers, he could pick 4 or 5 Joe characters to put on there in a similar style. And I had been talking to him about doing Flint which is why we got on the topic of the first cover. And he said, well, Shane, I did this cover, and the original art hasn't been shown yet, so you could just buy this cover if you wanted. And he said, plus, I get to draw 3 more covers. If you wanted, you could pick whatever characters you wanted for those covers, and you could buy those. And I'm like, can I make payments? So we worked all that out. But the whole thing was, he didn't know what they were for. So we were picking characters for the covers, not knowing who was going to appear in the actual publication. So I know when these first started coming out, fans were complaining, why did they put so-and-so on the cover? They don't appear in here. So these 5 characters I picked these 5 characters because we didn't know what it was for yet. By the time we got to volume 3, he knew what it was for. And I told him what 5 characters I wanted. And I think one of the characters stayed, but somehow he incorporated other characters and he thought it was my 5. I'm like, no, that's not the 5 I picked. And then the 4th one, they ended up changing up on him. They said they wanted Cobra. He's like, I know that's not what we agreed to, but I have all 4 covers. The first cover he had already drawn. This one, I picked the characters. And then the 3rd one's like a combination. And then the 4th one, he went with basic Cobra characters. But yeah, so Tim and everyone else who is upset with the characters on the covers to volumes 1 and 2 don't necessarily make sense. It's because he didn't know what it was for.
That is hilarious.
Huh.
He just likes to share to poke the bear because he knows how jealous I am that he has all these. That's why I chose him. I get it. I get it.
I'm glad
I
he
told Mark before we went live, I told Mark out of my pretty decent sized art collection, I own 6 covers, and all 6 covers are G.I. Joe covers. I don't own covers to anything else. All my original art, my only covers I own are G.I. Joe.
4 special missions reprints. What are the other 2?
I have a Tom Feaster cover, and I have
from Frontline or from Origins.
From Origins. I have one of the Ripcord covers, the one where he's parachuting out of the Sky Striker.
Cool.
And I have another Robert Atkins. It is pencils to the cover to 21, which was Shipwreck, Torpedo and Wetsuit, and Cover Girl, like climbing into the sub. It featured 2 Navy SEALs, which I said I'm a fan of. It had Shipwreck, who gets paired up with them a lot, and then Cover Girl. The detail in that is ridiculous. It's got like pipes and vents and everything going down the ceiling while they're crawling in their gear, dripping with water. And that's a great one. That's one that I think he posted it, and I hit him up right away, and he's like, yeah, it's available. And I mean, those days are over. And now I think when he does something, I think it's sold before he draws it.
Shane, just so you know, when Shipwreck's second figure came out in '94 and he's in the gray wetsuit, his file card changed and he was now also a Navy SEAL.
Yes.
Sorry, you know that. But just for other people who are getting sketches and artwork of all the Joe Navy SEALs, Shipwreck need not be in his blue sailor outfit.
Even the what is it, the Spy Troops version with the sweater and the knit cap and the shoulder holster. To me, that's a good representation of, like, you know, going behind enemy lines, running around. A lot better than the original costume.
Or what Wetsuit wears in like Ninja Holiday in that episode where he's just in like regular clothes, just like a button-up shirt and pants, kind of like Shipwreck.
Yep.
That's quite a collection. Thanks for sharing, Shane, and lots of good stories.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. It's always fun to share the art and share the stories. I wouldn't be on here right now, I'm sure, without John recruiting me and suggesting me to you guys. I enjoy mine and John's relationship in the world of G.I. Joe, and artwork. It's good to have a good close friend that we can reach out to and be like, hey, look what I got, or I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And it's even better when we get to hang out, which has been way too long.
Been too long. I will always say, though, too, I've always enjoyed being at conventions with Shane because there is a bit of one-upsmanship. Who gets the better? Like, I can remember one in particular. We both got a piece from one art, the same artist, and I could see it on his face, like, "Oh man, you win." And I can say the same, for him. But that's always been a lot of fun.
That's what friends are for.
And we are such a small community of collectors in the big picture. He mentioned when I met Christopher Giles, it was great talking to him, and we met Olivia 10 at Heroes, and Olivia. We should try to get Olivia here. She's got the greatest Scarlet Snake Eyes collection on the planet. But just all these different people because it is such a small population in the big picture. It's been tremendous fun.
Shane, do you have a first convention that you're planning to or hoping to go back to as we sort of open up in the States?
Next month there's a smaller show about 3 hours away here in Ohio, Gem City Con. Normally that's in the spring. It's usually our first con of the season, and usually there's a good handful of us that go because a lot of my group lives down that way now. This year, just because of everything, right now it's looking like just me and one other buddy might go, and it's going to be pretty low key, which I think is a good way to start back. I figured big shows, it's going to take them longer. It's going to be harder for them, even if they can make things work, and they're at the mercy of the convention centers or the venues, so they can't even make their own decisions on how things work. I know a lot of creators are not going to be open to traveling. I know some are chomping at the bit. They want to go out. They want to see fans. They want to do all of that, but I know some are still hesitant. I get that. I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think everyone's got their own views on all this that we're dealing with, and I think everybody's right. I don't know what the right answer is. I don't argue any of it, but last year I was supposed to see Larry Hama at 3 shows, and I had probably lofty plans on how I wanted to utilize that and make that work. And that hurt. That there was no way that was going to happen. And I know Larry is very cautious about traveling, so I don't know when or if I will see Larry again at a show. I'm grateful that I've gotten to, and there's few people I'd rather hear stories from, but him being cautious he's not wrong. I work my line of work. I didn't get to work from home. I work out with the public. I'm out every day. I worked every day during the pandemic. I mean, everybody took precautions. It's all different. Everyone has different experiences. Everyone has different backgrounds. I'm excited to go back. We've been doing it so long. It's social. John and I might have met online initially, but we got to become friends, I think, a lot more so from seeing each other at Heroes and spending time together and sharing stories and showing off our art. Heroes Con is almost more family reunion. I think John will agree with that too. When we go down, there's people. I've been going to Heroes Con since 2000 or 2001. There's people we only see there, or now we only see them there. They don't, shows have changed or whatever's changed. So I'm looking forward to going back to shows. I think it's still going to be a minute till shows are what they used to be. I just think it's a process, but I'm glad we're starting back. I'm glad to go back. I'm glad to have that. Being at home, unfortunately, did not stop me from acquiring new artwork. It almost was easier to just sit there and wage war from my computer. And I did this past year. I reached out to a lot of older school guys that I would not see at shows. L. Milgram was one that I reached out to that I took the shot. I found an email address and I reached out to him and had a great email interaction with him. Love that I got to do that because I've never met him. I don't know if I ever will get to. I mean, he's one of those early guys. He inked 2 of the early Marvel covers, which is why I reached out to him. I had him do Zap for me. I'm trying to get guys who worked on early G.I. Joe stuff to do the original 13 Joes for me. So he was like, I didn't really do a lot of G.I. Joe. I'm like, I know that, but also a lot of the guys who did aren't around anymore. There's a lot, Maurice Severin, Frank Springer, Herb Trimpy, those people, they're gone. We don't have them. Even guys, younger guys, Josh Metters, Jeremy Dale, those guys are gone way too young. I hate that. So I kind of regret any missed opportunities that I had with legends. I don't want to make that mistake again. So guys like Milgram or Bob Hall that did the 2 covers that Milgram inked. Is he a huge part of the G.I. Joe mythos? No, but he did 2 of the early covers. He did 2 of the first couple of covers. All right, yeah, I got a deal. Bob Hall. Early on, like Maurice Severin. I didn't realize how instrumental Maurice Severin was in the world of G.I. Joe. Not just the comics, but a lot of the promotional artwork and production stuff. And she just wasn't a name that clicked with me. And realizing after, I think because of her passing a couple years ago, what a force she was in the world of comics, I wish I'd been more clued in on that. I wish I'd been more aware of her work and known more about her when she was around. So I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm getting older. We're all getting older. I hate that we're missing people. When I mentioned earlier, Trimpy, when he signed one of my hardcovers, for $10, he'd do a little remark, and he did a Baroness for me. And my one buddy who was with me, he thought about doing that, and he's like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to wait. And then the following year, I believe it was, Trimpy was going to be one of the headlining guests. And he's like, oh, this is great. Eric's a big Iron Man fan, so he's going to get an Iron Man. He said, even if it's just one of those remarks, that'll be great to have that. And Trimpy had to cancel. And then shortly after that is when he passed, and we lost him. So he missed that opportunity, and he beats himself up for that because he was right there. He was at the table with me when I got that little Baroness remark. And you can't go back. You can't change that. You can't undo that. So yeah, being a fan of Joe, and when I started doing this, other people I'm sure were doing it. I know I wasn't the first one. Other people had Joe artwork. But when I made it my focus and I started a sketchbook, I wasn't like, no, there's a ton of people who do that, and that is awesome. I love that. The more the merrier. Yeah, let's collect that. But I didn't know the other people who were doing it. I wasn't like in a competition. I wasn't trying to, compete with anyone. Now it's inspirational. Like I look at John's stuff and I'm like, that was a great idea. I don't know why John reached out to that guy, but I love that guy's stuff, and that was a great piece, and I should get something from that guy. I try to give credit. John's turned me on to a lot of great artists. I've done the same for John. We talked about our friend Christopher Giles that I know through Heroes Con. He's turned me on to Pat Quinn. He's always pointing people out to me. He's really good at that. I've gotten away from that. Like my roots in the comic book store were good because I knew a lot of people who were active at the time I saw their stuff coming out month to month. So I followed those names. Now I don't know who a lot of those names are. I don't know. A lot of these guys that are working in books, I don't know who they are. Not just Joe, but overall. Nobody has runs like they used to. Nobody's on a book for a year, 2 years, 3 years. We're lucky to get 2 or 3 issues out of someone. The industry works different. But back then, yeah. I want to get those guys. I want to add them to my collection because they're a part of that. It's not just that I want 20 sketches of Flint and Lady J. I want cool people doing it. Not everyone I get is going to be a Joe artist. Not everyone I get. Some of them are just good artists, and I want to see their take on G.I. Joe. Some of them are good artists, and they like G.I. Joe. So yeah, absolutely. You want to draw Destro? Heck yeah, draw Destro. That's G.I. Joe. I'll get that. So it's just a mix. I don't know. I rambled there. You asked me one question, and I took it way farther.
Yeah, I think we could. I think we could talk all day. We've been talking almost 2 hours and 10 minutes now. So, and I know Tim has got things that he's got to get on and do.
I've got a Eco Warrior Snake Eyes Armor Tech Storm Shadow. While you were talking, Shane, I posted it on Facebook, and 17 people are now paying me for 17 different sketches of these two guys. I didn't even know the color schemes yet.
I can't wait to see him. That's going to be amazing.
So, if wrapping up, Shane, is there a place where people can go to find you if they want to find out more?
All of my art collection is on Comic Art Fans under my name, Shane Simek. I've got it broken down by G.I. Joe Sketchbook, G.I. Joe Original Art, my other art interests, Captain America, X-Men, Titans, Team 7 from Image. There's just random stuff, Marvel and DC. I'm not that guy that I'm like, oh, Spider-Man, that's my guy. Everybody else is whatever. No. I like superheroes. I like military stuff. I like what I like. I don't know. I like it all. It's hard for me to pick.
Okay. And this direction, John, where can people go if they want to find you?
JonThurmond.com for all things Jon Thurmond. You can find my HR show there. And if you're into these kind of things, StarJoes.com for StarJoes podcast.
And we've also got your episode that's up on the YouTubes. So go and actually, I think it's still private at the moment, but it will be going live soon to the general public. So that is going to be there shortly. And then which direction do I point? This way, I think.
Yep.
Up to Tim. Tim, where can people find you? I've got a banner.
Instagram, A Real American Book. Facebook, A Real American Book. And arealamericanbook.com. This week I'm writing about David Anthony Kraft.
Indeed. And yeah, thanks for joining us on Talking Joe. If you want to find out more about us, the place to go to is talkingjoe.co.uk, which has all of the links. And big thank you as well to all of the Patreon people. Thanks for contributing to that. You know who you are. And so I think that just leaves me to say, and please feel free to join in. When all's said and done, you can catch us down the road.
Because we've been Talking Joe.
We're all out of Joes.
Laters.